All right, guys, Caroline Soro and Nathan Swaffar here with Kansas 247. Now, we just got done with men's basketball media day, and I have to say it was a lot of fun. Like, the guys were serious, but they also were candid at times, kind of showed a little bit of their personality, talked about basketball, but also all kinds of stuff off the court and just some of the things that they do to bond. So we'll get into that here in a little bit, and I'll talk about, some of the stuff that I talked to the guys about. But, I mean, Nathan, what did you learn today? I mean, who did you talk to? Where did you get to go? Kind of, what did your day look like here at media day?
I talked to Joe Yesufu, KJ Adams, DeJuan Harris, and Kevin McCullough. All four of those guys seem pretty primed for the season. They seem ready to get going. One of the takeaways that I especially had, I talked to Joe for a while. And compared to last year, he mentioned kind of halfway through the season that he wasn't feeling so comfortable, through that first half, that he was having some trouble adjusting, trying to get back on the horse, per se. Kind of got that into the second half of the season. And this year, it seems like he's ready to go from the get-go. He's adjusted to Bill's system, adjusted to KU basketball as a whole. Seems like he's, primed and ready to have a really good season. Kind of the same thing with KJ, with him now being a sophomore, having a little more experience, being on the court in those big moments last year. Last play of the championship game, he's on the court playing defense for you. So, and then with DeJuan and Kevin, two guys coming in expected to be leaders, especially with DeJuan, being the starting point guard from a championship team. These guys just seem ready to go, and really all of them seem like they're ready to have some really good seasons.
Definitely, and that was kind of a common factor that I was hearing today as well as I was talking to some of the guys, was just that comfortability level. I feel like, last year we had a couple guys, as you said, in Joe and KJ. It was their first time out, or at least first time here with the squad here at KU, and so now they're in kind of their year two as Jayhawks, and so I feel like there's a different level of, okay, we know the system, like you said, we know what it's like playing under Bill Self, we know what it's like being with these guys, and KU did lose a bunch of seniors here, in the spring. You lost Ochai, you lost CB, David, a bunch of guys that were huge playmakers, but that just gives room for guys like Joe, guys like KJ, guys like Kevin McCullough to come in and step up. And I also think, as far as the comfortability piece goes, having Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris here as well, and just kind of having, that experience kind of come down to some of the younger guys and some of the guys that haven't been with the squad as long. Yes, both of them have been with KU for, the longest out of anybody on this team, so you could consider them the Jayhawk vets, but they also have that experience from playing in a national title game. And Bill Self mentioned last week that he, didn't want the national title to hang over everybody's heads and set the tone for the season and that type of thing. He kind of wants to get away from it, not let it put a target on any of the guys' backs. However, having that experience piece, I think, transfer over from the spring, it's going to be a big deal, especially, getting some of these younger guys like Grady, MJ, all of these guys that are coming in, getting them integrated with the squad, and not only having, them be more comfortable, but also kind of having, okay, hey, we're the vets and Jalen and DeJuan, and, this is kind of how it's done here at Kansas. This is what we can show you. This is how we can help you get ready for the season and help them make that transition, because I feel like Bill keeps harping on how young these guys are. Yeah. And yes, they are young. Like, you lost 7 seniors, so of course you're going to have, a younger squad come in the following year. So they are young, but they're going to have to fill in those roles as if they were older guys, right? Because they're going to have to move into those spots. So I feel like it's going to make it all the more important for guys like Juan and Jalen, and even Kevin to kind of step in and be, I guess you could go as far to say, mentors in this situation as well. So so we talked a lot about, season preview, and that was kind of a common thing today, just kind of getting everybody comfortable and how the guys are gelling. And from what I heard, I spoke to Kevin as well. I also spoke to Jalen Wilson. I spoke to DeJuan. I spoke to Bobby too. And all of them just said that it seems like this team is gelling really well. Like, despite having a lot of young guys and, having a lot of turnover over just a few short months, it seems like they're all getting along really well. Like, Bobby mentioned that they like to go out to dinner like multiple nights a week. And I talked to Joe. He said they love to go see movies. Like, they just go out and do all kinds of fun things like that. And so I just think that that's a huge deal, and having, not only everybody being cool, calm, and collected on the court, but it helps to be able to do that when you have those relationships outside and off the court. And, they're just they're building the team aspect of it, but they're also friends, which I think is great. So.
I kind of heard the same thing. I talked to Joe, who mentioned that they were going to go to Topgolf later this week, learned that Dylan Wilhite apparently has the best swing on the team, and that Joe can't hit a ball from his own perspective. So, but one of the things that I kind of heard along those lines was how the defensive prowess of this team is higher than it's been in a long time. With the 4 guys that I talked to in Joe, Juan, KJ, and Kevin, those are kind of your 4 defensive workhorses, especially DeJuan, KJ, with those guys coming back from last year. And one comment that stuck out to me, especially that was from KJ, was how diverse this defense really is, because all those guys have different defense abilities that can all gel together really well. And, asking the other guys about that, they agree. Every single one of those guys can do something different defensively and can do it well. Another comment that stuck out to me with DeJuan, he called KJ a junkyard dog because he's willing to do the dirty stuff. He's willing to get in front of somebody and take a hard hit, and he's willing to just do whatever it takes to win. And all those guys with that defensive prowess, I think it was Joe or DeJuan who mentioned, we didn't have that prowess at the beginning of last year. We were too focused on other things, and they kind of came on later in the season. This year, DeJuan said, we need to have that attitude straight off, because if we can pick up where we left off in April last year, we're going to be in such better shape come March this year. So that defensive prowess was something that I heard a lot from those guys, and that's something we've heard a lot, from the preseason. Now, with the first exhibition game next week, we've heard that this defense is going to be good.
Well, yeah, you've got scrappy guys in there like DeJuan. He's proven. We've seen that the entire time he's been a Jayhawk here. And then, of course, KJ stepped in and was really beneficial on the defensive front, even, towards the end of last season as well. So, yeah, I definitely think that the defense is going to be something that's huge here. But I also think that, we're going to see some changes offensively. Now, Bill mentioned that there aren't that many guys who are true shooters this year. Obviously, Grady, that's kind of his role coming in and being a true shooter. But I thought it was interesting, he mentioned in the press conference that one of the standout guys that is now, I guess he deemed him as the best shooter on the team, is Michael Jankovic. That was a name that I didn't expect to hear, not just, because he just didn't get a lot of reps last year. And so I think that that's awesome that, they mentioned that Mike is one of the, best shooters on the team.
I mean, he did lead the late night scrimmage in scoring. He was 3 for 3 from behind the arc. Something that just stuck out, obviously, Michael's one of those guys that you don't see getting into the game a lot, right, obviously. Yeah. One thing that kind of Bill said that jotted my memory almost was somewhat comparing him to Connor Tehan. Yeah. Somebody brought that up, and watching Connor Tehan back in 2012 especially, when KU made the Final Four, that really kind of stuck with me a little bit, because I remember how he kind of got lost in the background with the great talent on the team with Travis Relaford, Jeff Withey, Thomas Robinson, but he was such an important part of that team. And I personally don't really foresee him being that type of player, but if he can come off the bench and give you, 5 to 10 meaningful minutes and get you at least something, that will go a long way for this team.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of what Bill was talking about, after the players went around at their roundtables as well. That's kind of what Bill was talking about, is he's a guy that you can have come off the bench and, get up 3 to 4 shots and hopefully make 2 of those, because he has a great shot from downtown. And that Bill said that's kind of, Jank's role in this offense right now, which I think that's just a sentiment to kind of how they're going to pick and pull different people who have different strengths. I think it's just a sentiment to how versatile this offense is. I mean, you're talking about, I feel like everybody's focusing on losing Ochai, losing CB, losing David McCormick, those guys that generated a lot of points last year and were able to just mow over people and get through the lane and score. And, of course, your outside shooting in Ochai and CB as well. But I feel like something that we're not talking about is the people that are going to step in and fill those roles, because the points are going to get scored. They're just going to get scored by different people. And so I thought that it was interesting to hear, Bill's take on Michael Jankovic, kind of how he fits into this offense as well, and just some of the different guys that he expects to step up this year. So that was a big takeaway from today as well. But, anything else aside, is there anything that you picked up from the guys' personalities today? I saw a lot of personality myself. They were goofing off and having a good time. So, what was one thing that stuck out to you, I guess, not court related, just something that was kind of fun that you talked to the guys about today?
Kind of at the tail end when I was going to talk to Kevin, he was talking about video games and how that's actually a pretty big part of having this team somewhat relax. We know that video games can be a big part of a team's chemistry, right, and togetherness, but to hear that firsthand, not only from Kevin, but I heard it from Joe as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I heard it from Bobby as well.
Yeah.
He was talking about like, he plays Rocket League and everybody else plays Rocket League too, and they all like to play games together and stuff.
Yeah, just hearing that kind of tells you that this team does have chemistry. You mentioned off the court stuff, but I do want to talk about one more thing that I took away, hearing this from multiple guys. We kind of anticipated Joe being a point guard last year, coming in for relief, especially when Remy was hurt. When, Juan coming out of the game, you might see Joe come in and play the point. I don't think that's going to be his role this year from what I've heard. Bill mentioned in his press conference, he wants Bobby to be an all-around scorer. He wants him to focus on scoring and defense. And we kind of saw that when, before he transferred in, but we didn't see it last year. And obviously that's because he was adjusting and trying to get used to everything, and he was playing the point a little bit. But to hear that not only from Bill, hear it from Joe himself, and then DeJuan also said the same thing. That team understands that he needs to be that all-around scorer, but also needs to be that defensive workhorse. So it'll be interesting to see, to watch his development into this year, because you would anticipate him having a bigger role than last year, but we don't know yet. And we don't know what that role will be. I mean, at this rate, we only know the roles of DeJuan and Jalen. And Bill mentioned that multiple times at the press conference. He doesn't know how all these guys are going to fit into the puzzle yet, except for Jalen and DeJuan, because he knows their abilities.
Right. I think it's honestly going to be a little bit of trial and error and see what's working. Like Bill mentioned, I feel like Christmas time is kind of the marker for, okay, we're after the holidays, after first semester, we're moving into the winter, we're moving into the spring, that type of thing. So I think that that's going to be a big marker for kind of like getting out some of those adjustments. Then you move into conference play, and then it's people really start to fall in to their respective roles. So yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Joe. I'm interested to see kind of where Kevin falls into the mix, because we've talked about Kevin coming in and being a leader, but Bill also mentioned in the press conference that he's not quite comfortable yet being a leader on the same level as Jalen and DeJuan Harris are right now. So I'm interested to see kind of how his role shifts and how he molds that into his own as we progress through the season. So I think we're going to see things now are looking a lot differently than they will come, end of December. So I'm kind of interested to see how everything shifts. But I also think we're going to get to see different player strengths, as well as, like I said, what works and what doesn't. And especially from the younger guys, I'm excited to, watch them and watch them get some exposure as well. But that's about all for me. So I thought it was a pretty productive media day. I thought it was cool to get to, preview the season with the guys, as well as hear from Bill today, and just kind of get to see both the serious stuff, but also some of the not so serious stuff, and just get real with everybody.
Yeah, I would agree. It was a great media day. It was great to hear from some of those guys, but it's also great to have that firsthand perspective, as we're just about a week away from the first exhibition game. So we're gonna get geared up here pretty quick, and we're gonna see whether this team can really show that they can defend the national championship.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like you said, we're about a week away from the season here, so we'll have more basketball stuff coming your way, but for right now, this is all we got for you.